You have the floor. Thanks very much. Thanks, Aprecid, for offering this space to share these stories. As the name of the session goes, the path to innovation. We're going to listen to two stories, one which has a longer track record, another one which is more recent. And of course, if you have any doubts, questions, comments, please do raise them. Let's move on to the two presentations. Good morning to you all. I'm Luciano Belloni. The idea is to tell you the following. Even though the protagonist here is Lucas, because we are participating, lending a hand to transform this traditional vegetable growing model, thanks to Lucas's drive. We have been looking for alternatives. The idea is to show you the following. When we speak of Mendoza, or at least those who are from outside the province of Mendoza, when speaking of that province, we associate it to mountains, barbecues, winemaking, and we associate Mendoza to the viticulture industry. But there's plenty of agricultural activity in addition to that, that maybe is not that visible, it's a bit more limited, but it is very important economically speaking. I wanted to show you the total area devoted to agriculture. It's 280,000 hectares, half of which is used for viticulture, and the rest is distributed among the other crops. The vegetable growing portion, which is 14 to 15% of the total area. You may look at the figures and trying to identify relevance in terms of surface area. It's the third in terms of importance, but it is the activity that employs the most labor in the province, and especially in the case of vegetable crops. The predominant crop being garlic. Mendoza produces 95% of garlic used in Argentina. It's one of the major global producers, and it is one of the most important activities in the province as well. So I think it is important to start with that crop when thinking of changing the production model, because it's the one that bears the most impact. There are other crops, of course, potato, tomato, onion, carrots, and others. Mendoza has a semi-desertic climate. Conditions are extreme, weather conditions are extreme. Rainfall is around 250 millimeters per year, mostly in summer. We have over 300 days with full sunshine, no clouds. That's why it's the province of sunshine and good wines. We have the zona wind, which is one of the adverse weather events that may cause erosion, wind erosion in this case, and the hail is a little bit higher than in the rest of the country, and there are extreme temperatures. We wanted to put you in context because at the time of making decisions, these are determining factors to take into account. As to soils, they are young soils, fertile, with 3 oases that are clearly identified where agriculture takes place. They are fertile, well-irrigated soils with the predominance to an acidic pH, saline soils. And management requires is a challenge.
Orgánica también es una característica de los suelos de
Also, they have a low organic matter content. So when Lucas starts talking about the advantages of no-till, we'll discuss the potential for this model. And it is, of course, 100% of agriculture that takes place under irrigation. So, well, Lucas, you have the floor to share the experience. Hello. The story goes as follows. When we started innovating in garlic production, I have grown garlic for 4 crop seasons only. We started working with high-density sowing. The trigger for this was the work done
en el último congreso en Rosario, justamente, que se hizo, en una charla, fue de otras regionales, justamente el planteo de copiar el modelo en extensivos de directa, que está tan pulido durante tantos años, llevarlo a la horticultura. Cuando empecé a ver el modelo, empecé a ver todas las ventajas que podríamos tener para adaptarlo en la zona nuestra. Y desde el punto de vista, o sea, cada vez los problemas productivos o las economías regionales en Mendoza son cada año más complicados. Los costos más altos, las condiciones climáticas, la falta de agua, algo que de agua de riego, son turnos de agua o pozos donde se bombean muchos litros de agua, que justamente el costo de electricidad o el caudal que tiene ese pozo, son todos problemas diarios, ¿no? Entonces, ¿dónde ser más eficiente? Intentamos buscar un sistema de alta densidad en siembra directa. Es como ir un poquito por todo, ¿no? Para la zona es como totalmente nuevo, no hay nada ni cerca ni parecido al modelo este. Cuando replanteamos el sistema empezamos a encontrar, cuando empezamos en los primeros ensayos del año pasado, empezamos a ver un montón de virtudes del sistema, donde, por ejemplo, suelos que están con problemas de salinidad ahí al límite, que es un problema muy grande por la evaporación, por la cantidad de horas de sol que tenemos y la falta justamente de agua. En suelos desnudos perdíamos la humedad muy, muy rápido, aflorando sales. Por ahí tenemos una imagen que pusimos para más o menos para que entiendan. Es poca agua y mucha evaporación, automáticamente suelos que están al límite, que no te puedes equivocar en absolutamente nada, porque tienden a hacer esa salinidad. Y en el modelo nuestro empezamos a ver que conservamos muchísima agua útil, hasta capturamos agua de rocío, o sea, cada lluviecita, que son muy pocas, insignificantes en la región, no están ni siquiera cuantificadas como milímetros para el riego, quedaban como capturados. Los ríos los empezamos a saltear, en vez de regar cada 8 o 9 días, empezamos a estirarlos 20 días. El último río tuvo 40 días de cultivo sin agua y no tuvimos ningún problema. Acá tenemos, esa es la siembra del sistema. Es un sistema en vez de surcos, camellones, que se usa en alta densidad, que también es lo que se incorpora al sistema, no solamente la siembra directa, es más plantas por hectárea, que se está usando mucho en otros países, se tiende a... Otras cosas que vimos del cultivo bajo en Mendoza, que el método por ahí es demasiado tradicional y se ha quedado... que en otros países por ahí se tiende a poner mucho más plantas por hectárea, el stand de plantas. Sumamos más plantas por hectárea, casi el doble, y un sistema de alta densidad, con un distanciamiento ahí no se ve, entre surco y surco de 1,50, con un camellón donde van las plantas por hectárea. Plantas por hectárea, aproximadamente metemos entre 100 y 120 plantas por metro, que sería 1,50 m cuadrados de superficie. El método por ahí es bastante... Siembra directa, le metimos un poquito de mano al método y sembramos antes de voltear las plantas de maíz. Este es un maíz blanco que tiene un mercadito, por ahí no estamos intentando armar el mercado, tiene un mercadito muy chiquito, que mucho consumo de la comunidad boliviana y peruana en Mendoza, que mucha gente, boliviana y peruana, que le comercializamos el maíz blanco. La virtud que tiene el maíz blanco, la verdad que este es un maíz blanco originario que le dicen, compite con malezas, por ahí resiste bastante el estrés hídrico, los veranos son bastante fuertes, entonces por eso adoptamos este maíz. El maíz va en la base del camellón, sobre la tierra, no sembrado, apodado sería, ¿no? Y va tapado 100% con la materia orgánica de la planta de maíz. Bueno, dentro de los datos que motivan ahí en el sistema es que la mejora en la eficiencia, la eficiencia del uso del agua, el agua útil versus el sistema tradicional. Mantenemos capacidad de campo, que es justamente una de las uno de los requerimientos que tiene un buen ajo es mantener la capacidad de campo. Con cualquier sistema de riego en la zona es muy difícil mantener la capacidad de campo, y con este sistema, al cortar la evaporación, mantenemos casi el cultivo, casi 100% de capacidad de campo en todo el cultivo. Algo que nos vino gratis, como quien dice, ¿no?, el sistema son suelos que el banco de semilla de maleza es muy alto. Cualquier riego que uno aplica automáticamente, y en el ajo se usa muchísimo, se usan hasta 5 o 6 aplicaciones de herbicidas, desde un preemergente hasta graminicida, este cultivo no tiene aplicación de ningún herbicida en un suelo cargado de malezas. No hay emergencia de maleza directamente, no salen. Y empezamos a ver también otra propiedad, que empezamos a ver el color del ajo. Justamente que allá se busca un color, en este caso un ajo morado, chino morado, se busca un color fuerte, que por ahí a la hora de venderlo o a la hora de comercializarlo, uno de los puntos es el color del ajo, ¿no? Se va perdiendo generalmente entre cultivo y cultivo, entre año y entre campaña y campaña. Nosotros recuperamos el color del ajo. Vemos una expresión muy buena de la planta, como una armonía total y no estrés total, a comparación de un sistema convencional. Los datos que motivan prácticamente, tema costos, es 70% o menos, tal cual como lo dice la teoría, en cualquier sistema regenerativo, 70% menos costos, que justamente es el problema por ahí el número uno, ¿no?, que en la zona, que son los costos que tiene un cultivo bajo. Un cultivo bajo está hoy ronda los $10.000, entre $8.000 y $12.000, depende de los lugares, la zona, todo, hacer una hectárea de ajo. Estoy olvidando, producción de costos, documentación. Bueno, los próximos pasos, como empezamos a ver que justamente para el próximo año o este año es el tema maquinarias. Es como que no tenemos no hay maquinarias, no tenemos absolutamente nada de los implementos tradicionales para hacer el sistema. Tenemos que empezar a salir como la misma historia de Apreside en su momento, justamente comparando el sistema con las diferencias, ¿no?, por supuesto, es empezar no solamente a producir el cultivo, sino también nuestros propios.
To produce the system, but our own implements. Also important is worms, which is a miracle to find worms there. So we did see worms. I don't know if I'm missing something. Can you hear me? We started a while ago with this methodology. The idea, even though we know what the fundamentals are, today we are on the path of adapting machinery, trying to fine-tune management, especially of the most important factors involved in garlic sowing, namely seed selection, sowing dates. We brought the model in order to show the picture. We are convinced that the model will work and that we need to fine-tune it and keep on comparing it. One of the objectives for this crop season and the next ones is to perform a proper analytical comparison in terms of cost reduction, a comparison of operating costs, and then the pros and cons versus the traditional system in terms of product quality. At the end of the day, in vegetable growing, as in any other case, we are dependent on yields, but yet another important factor is quality. As my colleague mentioned, compared to traditional garlic, in the first 2 crop seasons, we had very good quality garlic, so potentially the system does provide a solution. Our roadmap today is the following. We know that there is a potential for the system, that it can work, so we need to fine-tune it further, as it's been the case with extensive agriculture, and by adapting machinery, we will be able to improve technologies and processes. I don't know if the word is to force, but to go in that direction. Because in addition to production and economic results we have been obtaining, looking forward, remember that it is a soil with less than 5% organic matter, and now we have worms, water infiltration has changed, so there is a huge potential for this type of production. Even though the starting point has been garlic, because it's the most important crop in the region, I'm talking about vegetable crops, this encourages us to replicate this model in other crops, which we think will work well. In Mendoza, we have a plot that may be used by the Establecido regional office as a test plot, but we use it for production purpose. It's a 5-hectare facility. We have started testing cover crops. We have corn, and the roots of this cover crop, namely corn, have developed to such an extent that this leads us to think that in the near future we may be able to replace vertical tillage with crops, as it is the case with other agricultural practices. This is the story we wanted to share with you, and it's good to share this experience, and we hope we will have more experiences to share and tell you about how this system evolves. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Luciano and Lucas. Let's have the next presentation. We'll now go to Sergio, who will share his experience with us. Go ahead, Sergio. I have some ideas I'd like to share with you that came up after having prepared this meeting, but there are some topics I think we should discuss. But you didn't tell me. Good morning. Thank you, Aprecid. And especially I'd like to thank the Bahía Blanca Regional Office and Ricardo Ochoa. It's not only a regional office, but it's also a group of friends where we have lots of differences in terms of productive systems, but we have an endless number of things on which we agree in terms of production, way of living, and this is really enriching. Every time we participate in a meeting, we bring back home lots of positive things. I'd like to mention especially a person whom I already love, but whom I'm still loving, but he always brings new ideas that make me work harder. I'm not sure whether his Christian claim or side Gazetano, because he always makes me work. I'm sitting here because of him. A strong round of applause for Christian. In that area and in a large part of the country, he's really a renowned person in no-till. Inspiring stories, myth tamers. Why tamers? Those of you who know me will know that this is how I spend my days, dressed in that way, and I feel more comfortable on horseback than here on the ground. And why am I saying this? I love defending traditions, but on weekends, just for fun. On Monday, you have to start making money, paying salaries, you have to live, and very frequently, keeping traditions in the production leads you to making very serious mistakes. In our area, at least, those traditions may affect our production. And by those traditions, I mean production practices, tilling practices, in highly fragile systems with sandy soils, soils with very little organic matter, keeping on with those traditions, doing things like our parents or grandparents used to do, may be detrimental. Repeating those practices today, when we know there are other practices, other alternatives, is, I think, a bad thing. We will share with you what we do in our fields. And I'm saying we because this is a family company that was started by our parents. Today, there are 4 siblings. 2 of us are working in the fields, and thank God our parents still participate in our everyday activities. And I'm working with my brother, my family, my wife who's here. We work every day in our fields, and this is why I'll always try to say we, because we are a team, we're a group. You can see where we are located in the province of Buenos Aires, 100 kilometers southwards from Bahía Blanca. I said we had differences in terms of projection systems with other fields in the region. Our field is the only field under irrigation. That's the Buenos Aires Valley next to Colorado River. The river comes from the mountain chain. It gets water when it snows, which is not what's happening this year. It gets snow. It crosses the whole country, and before flowing out into the sea, it goes through our area where we have our production. I said we are myth tamers. It may sound like too big a statement, but I use the word taming because I love horse riding, and myth, I use the term myth because I think today there's still lots of myth. Our plot is the only plot that's 100% no-till in my region. And the myth that we still see in our area is that no-till does not work under irrigation. And we have been taming that myth because we already have some plots which have been producing with a no-till system for 15 years. And obviously, production will improve in time. This is what we think based on what we see on the soil and on our yield. It's an onion area. The most important crop, the largest income comes from onion production. And another myth was that in order to be successful, every plot had to grow onion. We stopped growing onion and garlic. Lucas was saying that he was planting garlic. We transferred or transitioned our plot to full cycle cattle breeding, fattening, and sale of breeders. And in agriculture, sunflower seed, corn for grain and feedstuff. We also plant wheat seed, wheat for grain. And then we also have our grasslands for grazing of our cattle that is in our fields and the fields under irrigation and those that are not, the dry land. We have some dry land. We irrigate through gravity because of water quality in the Colorado River, which is not very good quality, with high salt content, which is about 1.5 and 2 salt content. And what implies pressure makes us feel that at some point in time we will need to wash that soil so salt will not accumulate, and in the pressure system we won't have that water volume to wash the soil. It's something to review in the future. Another myth was that sunflower seed, for a seed, you plant 2 lines of male and 8 female, and in theory that line would have a reduced capacity to survive under no-till conditions. Obviously, we did that. We're doing very well with seed sunflower. You have to manage weeds, but it's not too complicated. Another myth is that you cannot have cattle raising in no-till land. Obviously, you have to be careful, but our cattle goes throughout our fields, and we are 100% no-till, both in dryland and irrigation land. We have had to struggle with our internal farmers and producers, that is, those farmers and growers that we have inside ourselves, because we always look to have good cover, and you need to really manage stocking densities so as not to have animals eat too much. That's the main issue we've seen in our establishment when mixing agriculture and cattle breeding. Another myth is that no-till is more expensive. As Lucas said, and we really verify this, I always say something that Guillermo Marron likes a lot. I say that we make things more quiet in the field with no-till. Our fields, which are fields under irrigation with intensive production, every 2 minutes we have an excuse to spend money. We need to go through the field again for garlic, or we need to, the soil is, there's too much compaction, so there are lots of excuses to spend money, but the issue is where you get the money from. Obviously, with no-till, you manage costs better, and what we say is that we are not working so much on the tractors, on the equipment, and we need to work harder with our brains. We have to get there in time to manage weeds. Otherwise, you just, we know it's easier to bring the rake and well, you go and use a rake, but we don't think it's the best. In areas under irrigation, when you irrigate through gravity, you need to level the fields. Here in APRESID Congress, when we say that we have gone down 1 meter in our soils and we are still producing, it seems crazy, but this is what happens. In some plots, we've had to take our soil down so as to be able to take some soil away and go 1 meter deep so that the soil will be productive. Obviously, it's difficult during the first few years. You see lots of spots where there were slopes or where you cut the soil off. Obviously, production is affected during the first years. In some areas, we also had to fill the ground. In some areas, people will just remove the soil, leave the soil aside. They will fill that part with the worst soil, and then obviously at a higher cost, they will refill that part. The goal is to avoid such complicated movements, which in some cases are unavoidable, especially if you want to use gravity irrigation. But then you need that soil to become productive, and the best way we've found to achieve this is obviously the no-till system. This is how you see some plots that we have been able to recover. If I had had pictures of the way in which those non-productive areas have become increasingly smaller, that would be great. Today we go to some areas that we know are areas where soil was removed 10 years ago, and you see almost no spots today. It's leveled with the rest of the plot. It's unbelievable. And the explanation may be that these systems are so fragile, the soils are so poor, that if you remove 50 centimeters of soil, obviously you're changing soil, but what you do later is more important. Irrigation, maintenance with cover crop, and all the organic matter you can generate is more important than what the plot used to have. These pictures are amazing, but this is not so extraordinary. This is what happens when there is wind, and we see this quite frequently in our area. That satellite picture is in the south of the province of Buenos Aires, in the Patagones district. You see how the soil is going to the sea. This was in 2008. We suffered major drought in that area. And this is a satellite image that's really impressive. But this is exactly what happens this dust storm does happen, and we've seen 2 or 3 events like this one. Obviously, this is soil that is traditionally managed with no cover crop, with tillage, and the losses in that area are amazing. I'm wondering when we lost our common sense as farmers. We can discuss whether tilling or no till, but common sense, when you visit the Patagones area, the north there is an irrigation area. They use Colorado River water, and in the south it's dry land. And the same thing happens in the Villarino district. When you visit that area and you take a look at the storage capacity, you can see that there was a lot of production at the time, and today that capacity is not used. If you go to that area today, you will wonder what happened here. There's a silo in an area where there's no production, but when you start talking to older people, they will tell you that there was production in that area a long time ago. Originally, those fields were productive. And when you start using your common sense and you wonder what's changed over the last 30, 40 years, obviously the material we use for seeding has improved, the tools, everything has improved. What has become worse is the soil, no doubt about that. Conventional tilling has destroyed that potential production capacity. I'm pretty sure that those silos are there because there were crops there in the past. Nobody will set up so many silos, grain silos there, if there's no production. Today, I would not build a silo there because there is no grain production. So I think we lost the capacity to just try to listen to nature. In the past, these soils have an excellent production potential. So what's happening? What has happened when you talk to farmers who are still tilling the soil? Obviously, they always find excuses. Today, the excuse is climate change. But when you take a look at historic rainfall logs, they're not so different. It's not that we would have 300 or 400 more millimeters in the past. Situation is quite similar. The only thing that has changed is the main resource, which is the soil. Obviously, with traditional tilling, those soils were productive, but today, after lots of different events like sandstorms, the soils are no longer productive. In our area, on average, rainfall is 480 millimeters. Now, this year, we've already had 230 millimeters. There was a lot of rainfall during the first months, February, March, April, and there's been no rain for 3 months. So the only thing we know for sure in our area is that it's a semi-arid area. If you do not consider the area where you are working, then you will not be able to understand why these things are happening, why these events are taking place. If we want to use the same productive system that's used in the center of the province or in the Pergamino district in our area, then we will be making a mistake.
These are pictures taken at our field. You can see corn planted for seed production. You see the male plant rows. There are 2. The rest are male plants, which is what is harvested. These are plots managed with no-till. There we are sowing wheat in a red clover stubble. Another picture shows corn chopping, and then you see other pictures with cattle grazing in irrigated pastures. Going back to the beginning, what motivated us to engage in this change? Well, we still have 2 more minutes. What motivated us to engage in this change was the picture we saw before with the wind sweeping the fields. Our main crops, corn, sunflower, are summer crops. We plant them in spring. And I'm angry when they show spring pictures elsewhere with birds chirping. Our spring is no good. I mean, you just see wind sweeping around. Everything is blown away by the time we have to engage in planting. The soil, the cover would be blown away. In the case of sunflower grown for seed production, we conducted pre-sowing irrigation. There was moisture below ground, dry land on top. The plots were not in the right condition to go in. There was significant wind. We would plant male plants first, but then there were issues with female plants. So we tried to see how to overcome the situation, and we started sowing on grassland, burnt grassland, in autumn, and with cover. Then we would come to spring, and when we had to plant summer crops, we sowed on cover crops. This maintained moisture. The plots would not be affected by wind. And we say, why, in order to do that, shall we use traditional agriculture rather than use no-till? And that's why, or where, we did try this. We felt comfortable with this practice. We realized that the cost was lower, the work involved was reduced. And when we started digging, as Lucas said, we started finding worms, which in our failed systems, there will be no worms. When we had to go fishing, we would never find worms in our lots. So we started finding a different life. We were recovering those degraded soils. So we were very comfortable with the results obtained, and we know this is the way to go. Of course, we need to refine it further. The first, second year, we grew sunflower for seed production. The first year, we did it on stubble from veg, and we controlled veg. There was no green matter for proper veg control. Veg is wonderful as a crop, but as a weed, when you want to control it in sunflower, it's really very difficult to remove and eradicate. So seed companies wanted to use other things. We ended up harvesting wheat with a reduction in the number of kilograms being harvested. There was wonderful veg. I mean, we had to find the way around and learn by doing. But as we dig and see what the soil looks like, undoubtedly, this is the way to go. Well, thanks very much, Sergio. In closing, and as I listened to you, something that came up in one of the talks when we started the Congress together with Guillermo Barron, and which was put forward, was that because of lack of knowledge about the system, and when I asked about how to replicate this and accompanying Sergio in his path, it is sometimes difficult to replicate the example. The question to you is, what about the ripple effect, the contagion effect in your areas? There is a social side to it and a technical, very important technical side to it. Do you envision any progress at the university level, for example? Very good question. It's going to be a hard way to prove, or a hard path to prove how we produce. It's a cultural shift that needs to be made. We have to do away with traditional practices. There are bottlenecks, lack of tools. It's a very difficult change to implement, and we have to keep on trying, of course, I mean, to show and set the example, but it's difficult. I know, Sergio, what you think. Well, at this point, I feel frustrated about trying to have someone or some others replicate the example. Truly, now in our case, I don't know if because of the latest activities in the INTA, the Technology Institute, after several years of having the fields being exploited using no-till, two technicians decided to step in to study and ascribe a figure to what I think happens. I believe that what we call cold, or ascribing a figure to that temperature. And what happens in the field has to be discussed, analyzed, what happens with water efficiency, or water use efficiency rather. We have to see what happens with chemical and physical conditions in that soil that is being managed using no-till. And the excuse at some point was, well, we didn't see what the initial situation was. Well, but there's your neighbor that shows you what the initial situation is. The field is now, or looks like my neighbor's. So we have to ascribe figures. It will take some time, but we will need to ascribe a figure to it, and that will help in terms of the contagion effect. Ascribe figures to costs. When we say, what do we mean by bringing some kind of quote-unquote peace of mind? We farmers are reluctant, especially cattle breeders, are reluctant to ascribing figures. We find it difficult, but if we start ascribing figures to what we think happens, it will be far easier to convince people. New generations play a very important role to do away with that tradition. We are visited by agricultural schools, and what I always tell the students is try to innovate. Do not stick to what you see. Try and do things differently. Maybe you are doing things well, very well, but there are certain things that you can do better, and which new generations play an important role to play. One last comment, and we are done. I fully agree. I believe that in order to have this contagion effect, this ripple effect, results will speak by themselves, and they will speak for us at every level, production, operations. We are convinced that this is a model that is beneficial for the whole chain. And as regards dissemination to institutions, we work hand in hand with the Agricultural Sciences School of the Cuyo University. We are working with INTA, the Agricultural Technology Research Institute as well, working along different lines of work. There's a group of students, indeed, who has attended the Apres Congress, teachers from different courses, too, and we held meetings with people at the university. It was Maximiliano, who is also present here, and myself, and people from the university. And at the last meeting, there were teachers from 8 courses interested in what we were telling and what they started witnessing in the test plot. So there's interest. Of course, we will encounter obstacles in that there's a generation which has been doing things in a certain way for decades, but we should be able to prove that things can be done differently. And in closing, innovation starts with a need. We had the need to solve the water scarcity. Irrigation is becoming ever more difficult. So it was out of need that we started with these, and we will surely need to resort to new things, and others will have to resort to new things because of this problem. Well, thanks for your presence, and we will be around.